Here's the next episode. On this episode of the All right, well, on this episode of the Taxes Show, we're going to talk about back tax problems, and not just how to avoid them, but how to fix them and get the right help fixing them, because folks, there's a lot more people than you know that have these problems. We're talking about how common they are, the one form that proves that you're not talking to a licensed professional, and how to avoid salespeople at call centers that will just take your money and not really help you. Why only 15% of pennies on the dollar offers get accepted, not even that many, and what that can cost you, and how to avoid that as well. And we're going to talk about the red flag for a fraudulent tax preparer. There's a scam going out there. One person was scammed for almost millions of dollars by the wrong tax preparer and got in tons of trouble with the IRS. And we're going to talk about how to spot a back tax scam in the first 5 minutes to figure out if who you're talking to help you with your back taxes is a scam artist. All this on the Taxless Show with my amazing guest, Bill Fritton, the back tax expert. All right, let's get started. You want to know one way to save thousands of dollars, put just extra thousands of dollars in your pocket? It's super simple. Every week, we're going to send you a tip from the Taxless Show when you sign up for our newsletter, taxless.show, or if you're on YouTube, just look below for a link to sign up for the newsletter. We're going to send you a tax tip every week. It's simple, easy to do, alternative investment advice, possible Q&As with tax experts. Plus, every month, we're going to give away a super cool I Hate Taxes t-shirt. Some version of that. But join us on the Taxless newsletter to make sure you don't miss a single Taxless episode. How many tax scams have you seen in your 30 plus years of experience?
Quite a few. There's a couple basic ones, but yeah, I've seen it all at this point.
What are the most common tax scams that you see?
So where people kind of get sucked in, few. Phishing scams these days, where somebody will get an email supposedly from the IRS asking for information, social security numbers, income numbers, et cetera, et cetera. One thing to keep in mind, the IRS will never send you an email asking for information. If you get something asking for these items, number one, you should never be giving anybody your social security number or bank information through the internet. But if it specifically comes from the IRS, no, it's probably a phishing scam. Same goes with, I've even received these calls, which I find fun because I can string these people along forever. Getting a call from the IRS saying you owe back taxes, and if you don't pay them, somebody is going to show up at your house in 15 minutes to arrest you. That's the most common one. I've actually even gotten a couple of those phone calls.
I've gotten those calls too. And especially when they say the cops are coming. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what the IRS says, cops.
Yeah, or you ask them where you can bring the payment to, and they'll just say, "Oh, you got to pay by
gift card."
Yeah, by a Best Buy gift card or something like that. But those are very common. I actually have fun with those. I've received a couple of those phone calls myself. But the IRS will never call you. All their contact will either, very rarely now, in person coming to your door. They stopped doing most of that a long time ago for various reasons. But it's also almost always going to be exclusively through the mail, where your first contact will come from.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it'll say IRS.
It'll be very official looking. Although I will say many of my competitors these days will send out, and they're not supposed to, it is against the law, or against Circular 230 anyways, for them to send out letters that look like official letters from the IRS with an 800 number on there for you to call to resolve your IRS problems. But many of my clients have received these letters, and they send them to me saying, I thought you were handling this, and why am I getting these letters from the IRS? And I said, this isn't from the IRS. This is from a marketing company trying to get your business. They make it look very official, like an IRS letter, like a lien or something of that nature. And the 800 number is actually their number for marketing, not to the IRS. So you call them, and then they'll try to frighten you and get you to do this, that, and the other thing. And some people actually think that, oh, I'm dealing with the IRS when actually they're dealing with a resolution company.
And so if someone does not know if it's really the IRS, can they give you a call if they're having a problem with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and then if you want, you can either fax me the letter or email me the letter, and I'll look at it and tell you this is really the IRS or no, this is a scam.
Yeah,
or maybe not a scam. Maybe scam's the wrong word, but it's a marketing company.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, but yeah, you can go to backtaxexpert.com, send you an email, and take a look at it. I mean, it's folks, if you don't. I think that's an important thing. Is like, don't believe it's the IRS. Right.
Right. Well, especially if you have if you file and pay your taxes every
Yeah.
year, and all of a sudden you're getting calls from the IRS. I mean, you really have to be careful that you're not giving your information to the wrong people. If you know that I filed paid my taxes every year, why am I getting calls from the IRS saying I owe them $50,000? This can't be true.
Yeah.
It's good to check it out.
Yeah, or like you said, if you're handling a back tax issue, most likely you should be talking to an expert first.
Yes, and if you can always call the IRS, inquire yourself. I mean, go online, look for the real IRS number, and know that if you're not sitting on hold for at least an hour, it's probably not the IRS.
That's a good litmus test.
Yeah,
if they answer right away, it's not the IRS.
If they answer and you hear voices in the background, it's probably not the IRS, and especially if they answer on one or two rings, because if you're not thrown into hold purgatory with the IRS, especially these days, for at least an hour, it's probably not the IRS.
And if they're nice to you, it's probably not the IRS.
And if they're nice to you, although I will say most IRS representatives are very professional and nice, but they have a job to do. Yeah. So they're going to get the money that they think they're owed, if in fact you do owe money.
And back tax, so I mean, there's a lot of people out there that owe back taxes, or they haven't filed their taxes in years, or they've got a tax lien and don't know what to do. And then they see these, all these opportunities to get rid of my taxes for pennies on the dollar. What types of scams do you see? Well, and also scams, but also tax relief. Let's talk about scams first, but then poor quality. What scams do you see there if I owe back taxes?
So there's a couple different scams scams. I don't know if that's the right word, but one of the biggest things we see is unscrupulous tax preparers. I've seen cases, and the biggest tell, if you go to somebody and they say we can, get you a refund, and we'll give you, maybe a loan against this refund, or we'll take a percentage of your refund. That's usually a big red flag if they're offering to take a percentage of your refund. Because they're incentivized to get you the biggest refund possible. If you do a refund, you do a refund. Yeah. You got to do it the right way, okay?
Well, what can happen if it's done the wrong way?
It can go criminal, actually. It can get really bad.
Wow.
Recently, I had a client come to me. They owed several $100,000. And I said, well, how did this happen? And he said, well, I didn't file, and the IRS filed for me, but I went to this accountant that I was referred to, and she actually prepared the returns, and I have large refunds. I said, okay, can you send me the returns? And I looked at the returns, and this is how you usually know if it's an unscrupulous taxpayer. The first thing you do, if they did not put their name onto the tax return, or if you think it's a professional tax preparer and they're using TurboTax or any other automated program and not a proprietary program, or one that's used by tax professionals, the biggest telltale sign on it is their signature and name appears nowhere on the tax return. In this particular case, as soon as I looked at the tax returns, I knew the guy had a big problem. He did have a $60,000 refund, but the return was completely bogus. He had put, or not he, but the accountant, or supposed accountant, had basically put for lack of a better term, a fraudulent Schedule C on the return, claiming upwards of $200,000 in expenses. And when I asked my client about this business, he's like, I don't own a business. I work for somebody else. I said, well, what are all these expenses? He said, I have no idea what they are. I said, did you file this with the IRS? He says, yes. I said, well, we got a problem. We got to get this corrected, because this is basically a fraudulent tax return. So we're working with him now, hopefully before things get too bad, to correct the problem. But that's an extreme case
Yeah.
where you're seeing tax preparers use bogus deductions that aren't there. They're just making up numbers basically to get a bigger refund. In terms of people in my business that are, in my opinion, less scrupulous.
And your business is back tax.
Back tax
relief.
expert,
Yeah.
yes. So if you owe back taxes, you come to me and I help you negotiate with the IRS, help you get out of the problem, set you up for the future, et cetera. But these offering compromise mills, the IRS has even started cracking down. And these are the pennies on the dollar schemes that you hear a lot of times on the radio or on TV. You come to us, you owe X number of dollars, and we'll get you out of it for pennies on the dollar. So it's not to say you can't get out of it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
But those situations are very rare. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, yes, I have had people that owe $500,000 that I've gotten them out of it for $5,000. I would consider that pennies on the dollar. That's a very rare case.
Yeah.
The bottom line is if the IRS feels as though they can collect from you, you are not going to get an offering compromise, which is the pennies on the dollar scheme that these people claim that everybody qualifies for.
And how does that scheme work? Like, what's the advantage to them? Are they?
Most of these big companies that promote these, you're going to hear them on the radio, you're going to see them on TV, you're going to pick up a phone, you're going to call an 800 number. More than likely, you're going to be calling a call center filled with salespeople that are going to be pitching you, we can get you out of this for next to nothing or nothing.
Yep.
They'll take your money, okay? And these are salespeople. These are not people that are qualified to represent you in most cases before the IRS. So there's only 3 types of people that can represent you before the IRS. An enrolled agent, which is what I am. I'm licensed before the IRS. A CPA or an attorney. We use all 3 in my firm, okay? But those are the only people who are qualified to sign a power of attorney to represent you in front of the IRS. The salespeople at most of these call centers are not enrolled agents, CPAs, or attorneys.
Yeah.
They're just salespeople, and they're trying to sell you on their service. Once you sign up with them, you'll never deal with them again. You will then go to another part of the organization. The biggest thing I tell people with these types of offering compromise mills is if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. In a 15-minute conversation, nobody can tell you exactly what the outcome is going to be because they don't have enough information. Unless they're taking a full financial statement and know every specific of your specific case, they have no idea whether you qualify for an offering compromise or not. Most people are not going to spend that kind of time with you on the phone before they get paid. Some of them are pretty obvious, but most of them are not.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I tell people, you see all these ads on TV, you hear all the radio ads, where do you think the money you're paying these people is going? Okay,
Yeah.
It's going to advertising. They're mills. They're trying to get it.
And so, how do they get paid? What are some of the signs of that? Like, hey, this is from a payment standpoint.
A lot of companies, a lot of money up front. Okay, maybe $10,000 up front, and they'll set you up on a plan, and they will not do anything until that entire $10,000 is paid. Some of these companies actually offer loans, high interest loans, for you to pay their fee, basically just increasing your debt. And I want to say a lot of them, you'll give them money and you will never hear from them. Not that you will never hear from them again, but they're very hard to get a hold of and get status updates and so on and so forth. The other thing I do see is they'll charge a fee up front and then you'll pay them that, and then they come back a month later and say, oh, something's changed, you owe us more money.
Oh my gosh.
Or this has changed and you owe us more money. And what I do is you will know the exact fee based on our initial conversation, what it's going to cost you from beginning to end. There will be no surprises, no increases in fees. I mean, obviously, if something that you have not told me that's drastically different from what you told me, we'll have to have a conversation. But it's not a hook to get you in. And then once you pay somebody, say for the sake of argument, $2,000, you already feel committed. So when they ask you for another $2,000 a month and a half from now, you're like, well, I've already spent two. I got to spend another two.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wasted the two.
Yeah.
I think you should know the exact fee up front before you get moving with somebody.
And from a service, quality of service standpoint, do you get people that have left those places and
All the time.
And what are some of the things that you've seen happen?
Basically, the vast majority of people I see go to one of these large firms that they hear on the radio or TV, and they come to me and they say, I paid XYZ company all this money a year ago and nothing's happened, okay? Or I paid XYZ company all this money a year ago, I haven't heard from them. They keep telling me that I have to get them information. When I've gotten them this information, I can never talk to the same person. I don't know what's happening, and I just need somebody to resolve this. The worst case is, I paid all these people this money. I get very little communication. As far as I can tell, nothing's happened. Oh, and my bank account or paycheck just got garnished.
Oof.
In most cases, if you've hired somebody to help you, those things should not happen, okay?
Gotcha, yeah.
A lien can be still filed because once you owe a certain amount of money, it's very hard to hold off a federal tax lien. It can be done through various means, but in terms of a bank account being levied or a paycheck being levied, if your representative is doing their job, that should be pretty rare. That should not happen because your representative should be working with the IRS to prevent any garnishments against your wages or bank accounts.
What's the worst story you've seen with one of these companies?
Oh, geez. Worst story I've seen. I think the worst story I've seen is relative recently, where this company prepared an offer and compromised for somebody, and there was zero chance of it being accepted. I said, do you have the paperwork that they submitted for you? And he said, yes. And I looked at it. And I said, there's no chance this is being accepted. This is basically, they're going to throw it out as soon as they see it. They're going to send it back to you. Unfortunately, with offers and compromise these days, it might be a year before you hear anything. And then so the downside of that is not only has nothing been done to resolve the problem in a year, you basically wasted a year. The biggest problem is that now you've extended the statute of limitations.
Oh.
Yeah, so you never want to extend the statute of limitations if you don't have to, okay? For example, I don't submit offers and compromise unless I think there's at least an 80 or 90% chance of one being accepted. I also can brag that I've never had an offer and compromise rejected. Every offer and compromise.
30 years, right?
30 years. Every offer and compromise I've ever submitted has been accepted. Now that's not to say the numbers haven't changed a little bit. But they've all been accepted, okay? And the reason for that is you never want to extend the statute, and I'm not going to submit either a frivolous offer and compromise just to buy time.
You're adding time.
Yes, because you're adding time. There's other ways to resolve the problem. Not everything is an offer and compromise, and very few people qualify. Only 15% of all offers submitted are accepted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very low amount. Now, some of that is, because the numbers, like somebody may submit an offer for $10,000 and you can come to a number, say $50,000. And, if you owe $500,000, well, $50,000 is still a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
But if you can't afford to pay it, you can't afford to pay it. You got to come up with the 50. And if you can't come up with the 50, as good as the deal as it is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So we look at all those things before we do an offer and compromise. So if we can get one accepted, can you actually follow through, okay? And then also know that once an offer is accepted, you can't owe any taxes for 5 years. Otherwise,
Oh, wow.
yeah, the offer is null and void and you owe all the money back again.
Wow. That could screw someone over.
Yeah. Yeah, to go through all that pay somebody all this money to get an offer in compromise accepted. You do it, and then 2 years from now, you forget to pay your estimated taxes or whatever. You can't pay it. Well, now the offer in compromise is null and void. All the money comes back, obviously less the money you paid them. But still, you owe, if you owed $500,000 before, you settled for 50, and now 2 years from now, you owe another 10 and can't pay it. You owe the $500,000 again, less the 50. So, which is probably at that point $500,000 again, anyways, due to interest.
Wow. Oh, so then the interest accumulates too.
Oh yeah, it goes back to the day it was accepted.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And how do you prevent? What are the questions I should ask of someone to prevent being accused or to falling victim to one of these back tax scams?
So my suggestion is this: never talk to a salesperson. If you're going to call somebody, you want to talk to the person that is going to be handling your case. Okay. Or if they specifically are not going to handle your case, because there are firms out there that, the head guy can't handle all the cases. He has people that help him, but he should be the one, or she should be the one, that is licensed to represent you. Okay?
Licensed.
Yeah, so either an attorney, CPA, or enrolled agent. All right? So you need to be talking to the person that has the expertise to evaluate your case in that 15 or 30-minute phone call at the beginning. So that when they tell you, here's what we think we can do for you, or here are some options that may be available to you, they actually know in the back of their mind and have been doing it long enough, kind of what way this case, nobody's going to know all the facts up front.
Yeah.
It's impossible. But you should be talking to somebody who's been doing it for a while and not a salesperson. You want to talk to the person who is licensed, because then anything they promise you, they have to live up to. Mm-hmm. It's not a salesperson promising you something just to get your money, and then once you give the money, they don't have to deal with you anymore.
Yeah.
They don't have to answer to you.
They might not even be at that company 3 months from now.
Exactly. If somebody calls me and I spend 15, 30 minutes on the phone with them and then say, here's what I think we need to do, here's how I kind of think the case will play out. If it doesn't play out that way, I got to answer to it.
Yep.
Okay. And if I do happen to have somebody in my office who may handle your case, I'm going to say I'm going to have, Joe handle your case for you. But they will always have my contact information. Every client that I get has my email, my office phone number, and my cell phone number.
Oh, wow.
So I get texts from my clients at 9:30 at night because they think something's going wrong, and they're anxious and nervous, and they want an answer.
And you know what's going on.
Yes, and I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's not placing a phone call and waiting a week for a phone call back. We're a small firm, so we provide individualized attention to each case. But most 90% of the clients who come to us, I handle personally. So I've had people call me on Christmas Day. For better or worse, I've had people call me on Christmas Day.
Not to wish you happy Christmas.
No, because they were nervous about something.
And so I guess another question is, ask them if they're licensed.
Yes. Are you a CPA? Are you an enrolled agent? Okay. Are you an attorney? Okay. And the other thing is, you want the person representing you to be able to sign a Form 2848, which is a power of attorney, that allows that representative to act on your behalf. Okay, so they are allowed to speak to the IRS, negotiate on behalf of the IRS, on behalf of you in front of the IRS, answer correspondence on your behalf, in some instances sign certain forms on your behalf, make payments on your behalf, not with their own money, but with your money. A lot of companies out there will only get what's called a Form 8821, which is an informational form. They cannot negotiate on your behalf or speak with the IRS on your behalf with a Form 8821. That's entirely different. An 8821 a lot of times is what actually mortgage companies will get to submit to the IRS, just to pull your records to make sure you've filed and paid your taxes for the last 3 years. If they're going to give you a loan, they want to make sure your taxes are filed. That's what an 8821 does. It does not allow somebody to negotiate on your behalf or call the IRS and speak on your behalf, prevent liens, levies, seizures, that type of thing.
Awesome. And what else can you do, like from a research standpoint, what else should you be looking at?
I mean, as strange as this sound in this day and age, I mean, look at their reviews online, okay? Do they have Google reviews? What do those people say? Are they willing to give you somebody to call? Like if you call this person, say, do you have any references I can actually speak with?
Yeah.
Can they give you somebody, okay? Or several people? How long have they been in business? Have they been in the same location for a long time? I think those are mainly the things you want to look for.
And can I come meet you in person?
Sure. Yep, my office. I've been in the same location for 30 years. So these days, quite frankly, a lot of people don't want to meet in person. But absolutely, if you want to come into my office and sit down and go through everything, I mean, still, some people still like to meet face to face, and that's perfectly fine. I find those people are usually the less tech savvy people.
Yeah.
And they want to come in and hand you the paperwork instead of uploading into a secure document repository. But yeah, I'm happy to meet with anybody anytime. Sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So well, this has been fantastic. Folks, there's a lot of tax scams out there, and if you owe back taxes, you got to avoid those too. And so go to backtaxexpert.com.
Yep.
You can give a bill. First call's free, correct?
First call is always free. Yep, 100% free of charge. And
Awesome.
then you can make your decision based on what you hear on that phone call.
Yeah, and follow his advice. Ask for the licenses. See those reviews. Make sure they're if you want someone local, find someone local, and that you can talk to them. I mean, even if you're not going to go in, say, "Can I talk to you?" I mean,
Yeah.
can I? Meet
a lot of people want the knowledge that, hey, if I think things aren't going the way I want them to go, I want to be able to come into your office and face you face to face and say, "You told me X. Why isn't X happening?"
Yep.
Instead of placing a phone call to Washington State or California. I'm on the East Coast, but I'd always be very wary of sending somebody a big check a coast away from me that I've never met in person. But
Yep.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So avoid those tax scams, and if you owe back taxes, call's free, and it'll give you a lot of relief. Thank you for joining us on the Taxless Show. It's been Bill Fritton, back tax expert, and Ian Garlic.
If you're behind on your taxes, you're not alone, but it can be scary, and the wrong advice can really cost you. But the right advice can get that out of your hair, and you can move on. What you need to do is find a local certified tax expert, and you can find that at besttaxhelp.org. On this website, you'll be able to find local tax experts near you, compare them, see their rates, and figure out what the best next steps for you before you ever have to talk to anyone and never have to talk to the IRS again. besttaxhelp.org.